Dear students, friends, as we have discussed about the contract, that there are three kinds of contract, that is void, voidable, and valid. So, in the Indian Contract Act, these are the three things through which a contract is accepted. That is, some contracts are void, some contracts are voidable, some contracts are valid. So, void contract. What are the void contract? We have discussed that an agreement without consideration is void. When an agreement without consideration is void, this means that if there is no consideration, that contract shall be void. After that, we have discussed another thing that is minus contract is void ab initio. This means the contract made by the minor, that is void ab initio, as it was held by the court in the case of by the Privy Council in the case of Mohri Bibi versus Harmodash Ghosh. But if any contract or agreement has been made in the interest of minor, that is not void. That is valid contract, for such as for learning, study, or playing games. If any contract has been made, then that contract is valid contract. What are the voidable contract? Voidable contracts are those contracts which are neither void nor valid, but they are voidable. Means they are in the middle. They may be void, they may be valid. So the main thing is that which we have got from the section 19 of the Indian Contract Act, which says that voidability of agreements without free consent. Voidability. What is voidability? It has been defined under section 19 of the Indian Contract Act, which says that when consent to an agreement is caused by coercion, fraud, or misrepresentation, the agreement is a contract voidable at the option of the party whose consent was so caused. Means that when an agreement has been created or an agreement has been made by fraud, misrepresentation, coercion, or by any other illegal means, then that contract shall be voidable contract. But it may be legal or void. It dependent on the other party. So the party for such purposes, it has been said that a party to a contract whose consent was caused by fraud or misrepresentation may, if the things fit, insist that the contract shall be performed and that he shall be put in the position in which he would have been if the representation made had been true. So it is on the party that whether by coercion, misrepresentation, or by any other means any agreement has been made. Then it is on the dependent on the party with whom an agreement has been made. It will be on the same position as if it is not represented, false representation or any undue influence has not been made. Meaning thereby that if another party is refusing to accept, then that will be void, or if he is accepting, it will be valid contract. Exceptions to this section 19 is that if such consent, number one exception is that if such consent was caused by misrepresentation or by silence, fraudulent within the meaning of section 17 of the Indian Contract Act, nevertheless is not voidable if the party whose consent was so caused had the means of discovering the truth with ordinary diligence. Explanation 2. A fraud or misrepresentation which did not cause the consent to a contract of the party on whom such fraud was practiced or to whom such misrepresentation was made does not render a contract voidable. So, for such purposes, we can go through the illustration like A has intentionally, which with the intention or intending to deceive B by false representation that his factory is manufacturing too very much cloth which is and is are made annually at A's factory. So and thereby induces B to buy the factory. The contract is voidable at the option of B. Why it is on the option of B? Because A has intentionally deceived and falsely misrepresented to B. So A has deceived B and B has purchased his factory. After that, it has the such contract shall be declared as voidable and it is on the option of B, another party, that whether he is accepting or not. If B is ready or agree, then it will be a valid contract, and if it is not, then it will be a void contract. So, in this regard, the scope of this another case is that a fraudulently informs B that A's estate is free from encumbrance. B thereupon buys the estate. The estate is subject to a mortgage. B by other avoid the contract or may insist on its being carried out and the mortgage debt redeemed. Another example, A is entitled to succeed to an estate at the death of B. B dies. C, having received intelligence of B's death, prevents the intelligence of reaching A and thus induces A to sell him his interest in the estate. The sale is voidable at the option of A. What is the scope of this section? We should go through the scope of this section also, which is most important. The scope is that this section states that the legal effect of coercion, fraud, and misrepresentation in rendering contracts procured by them voidable. The foregoing sections have only laid down their respective definitions. Section 19 of this Act does not now refer to undue influence. It was deleted from Section 19 of the Act by Act 6 of 1899. The said amendment inserted in the Indian Contract Act Section 19A, giving power to the court to set aside a contract induced by undue influence. Perhaps the most important parts of the section, certainly those which need the most careful attention, are the expectation and the explanation. These mark the limits within which the rule is applied. The party entitled to set aside a voidable contract may affirm if he thinks fit. That is involved in the conception of a contract being viable, and if he affirms it, he may require the performance of the whole and every part of it, subject to the performance in due order of whatever may have to be performed on his own part, or in default thereof, damages for non performance, if any, as well as the case may be. The default is wholly on the party due to the non existence of facts which defaulting party represented as criticizing this party, existing this party, can obviously not set up untruth of his own statement by way of defense or mitigation, and if the case is a proper one of a specific performance, and if it is in his power to perform the contract fully, through though with much greater cost and trouble than if his statement had been originally true, he will have to perform it accordingly. Apart from the remedies provided in this section, the aggrieved party may have agreement rescinded under section 27 of Specific Relief Act 1963, or he may refuse to carry out the agreement and defend a suit brought against him for specific performance and for compensation. So, friends, here compensation is also there, because in law of contract, you know that in contract there are two types of compensation or damages. Damages is also a kind of compensation. In torts, law of torts, it is used as damages, and under Indian Contract Act, it is used as compensation. What is the compensation? It is primarily fixed by law during the agreement. So, during the agreement, what has been established, that is known as that compensation shall be paid. Means of discovering truth in English law. The principle is that if a man makes a positive statement to another, intending it to be relied on, he must not complain that the other need not have relied upon it. The purchaser is induced to make a accurate examination by the representation which he had a right to believe. But when a purchaser chooses to rely upon his own judgment, then or of his agent, he cannot afterwards say that he relied upon a previous representation made by the vendor. Again, the possession of obvious means of knowledge may lead in some cases to a fair interference that those means were used and relied on. But still, the real point to be considered is whether the party missed did put his truth in representation made to him of which he complains, or in other information of his own. In the latter case, the misrepresentation did not really cause his consent. So, the exception to section 19, though ambiguously worded, is not intended to depart from the well established rule of English law. The exception lays down that the contract is not voidable in section 18 of the Act or by silence fraudulent, that is, silence amounting to fraud within the meaning of section 17 of the Act. If the party whose consent was caused had the means of discovering the truth with ordinary diligence. The reasoning for this conclusion, according to the High Court, is that the word fraudulent within the meaning of section 17 of the Act, appearing in section 19, applies to the proceedings and word silence exclusively and not to the word misrepresentation. Also, the legislature has used the prepositions by twice, that is, both before misrepresentation and also before silence. If the expression fraudulent within the meaning of section 17 were to qualify the word misrepresentation, the result would be startling as due diligence would be caused and required where misrepresentation became fraudulent, but not when the misrepresentation fell within section 18 of the Act and it was not fraud. Friends, it can be sum up. The plaintiff is required to exercise due diligence to find out the truth when his consent was caused by active misrepresentation, due diligence to find out the truth when his consent was caused by active misrepresentation as defined in section 18 of the Act or by silence amounting to fraud as defined in section 17 of the Act. The ordinary diligence of which the exception speaks may be taken to be such diligence as a prudent man would consider appropriate to the matter, having regard to the importance of the transaction in itself, of the representation in question, as affecting in its result a possibility of discovering the truth by inquiries involving trouble or expense out of proportion to the value of the whole subject matter would not, it is conceived, be means of discovering the truth with ordinary diligence. The standard of diligence required is not that of person learned in the law who might be able to discover it after careful examination of legal authorities. Where a purchaser was misled by certain statements of the accredited agents of the court made at the auction sale held. Certain statements of the accredited agents of the court made the auction sale hold under orders of the court. It was held that the purchaser had no means of discovering the truth while the sale was going on, as in the case of Kala Mia versus Harpering, held by the court, where a vendor leased a plot of a land to a third party, and it was held that the vendor could not plead that the purchaser could have discovered it with diligence. Where a purchaser of rice stored up at a place to which he had an easy access refused to take delivery on the ground that the rice was of an inferior quality to that contracted for. It was held that he could not resign the contract, for he could have discovered the inferiority of the quality by using ordinary diligence. On the other hand, as the learned author Sir Frederick Pollock and Sir Dilshah Mullah in their work on the contract tax say, the exception does not apply to cases of active fraud as distinguished from misrepresentation which is not fraudulent. So, cases of deliberate active fraud and of misrepresentation which is fraudulent are not within the exception of section 19 of the Act. Here, plaintiffs' failure to exercise due diligence to discover the truth will not be good defense of the defendant. The aforesaid principle, the said principle was applied in the case of in John Minas Epcar versus Louis Caird Malkus, defendant who wanted to sell his property caused letters to be written to him in which fictitious offers for the property at high price were made, with the sole purpose of showing it to an intending purchaser. According to the Calcutta High Court, this was fraud under Section 70 of the Act, and exception to Section 19 was not applicable. Thank you.